Please all be seated.
Now, if it's not there, why is it there? 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 Okay, so June 16th, that would have been the arraignment day. Yeah. That would have been an arraignment day. It was the day of arrest.
There was a margin on arraignment. Basically, when she comes, we're just going to keep them stay remain seated. So, to let you know, you don't have to authorize this time. Okay, she's going to come out. I'm going to just say remain seated. Okay. Please remain seated. Department 43 is back in session. Court will come to order.
Thank you very much. We're back on the record in the People versus William Joseph Christopher's matter, and the court has granted Mr. Christopher's Marston motion. Mr. Christopher is going to be referred to ADO for appointing counsel. So what I would ask is if the parties would like me to give them a pre-trial date for identification of counsel, and if you would like to have a trial date set today, we'll just have the trial date set after the IDC. In addition, there's been some issues with respect to the case of CC 9933180, which had previously been dismissed. Mr. Emmerich has made the representation that he had difficulty obtaining that file. He's looking at it now. I had asked Mr. Lucas, our courtroom clerk, to pull up the case number through the computer system and then ask that the file be pulled up today, and I was retrieved it today. I'm thinking that it might be beneficial to the parties if I have that file trail this case so that it can always be present in the courtroom as a reference. However, prior to me making any decision as to whether that matter should trail, I would ask to hear from the parties as to whether or not you would have any objection to me having that case come up to the courtroom every time we hear this matter. Mr. Christopher also raised some issues with respect to some medical issues, and so I wanted to ask if it would be appropriate at this time for the court to make a referral to jail medical. And then I'm happy to hear any other issues that you wish to raise. Previously this morning, the defendant had brought a motion to continue the trial date that was set for this week based on the fact that Mr. Emmerich has received new discovery, which he was able to pick up on only this Friday, October 14th, because it was at that point that all the discovery was at one place and was ready. I understood that Mr. Gibbon Shapiro would not object to the motion to continue. By the court granting the Marston motion, I think it just has the operation of having this case continue further. Mr. Gibbon Shapiro, thank you for waiting so long. I'm sorry you were waiting during that entire hearing. Would you like to be heard at all?
Sure, Your Honor. Just on the issues that you raised, I think that it would be a good idea to have the earliest possible identification of counsel date. And then once that counsel has been identified for Mr. Christopher, I'm sure the new attorney will want to have some say in what the trial date is. So I think it's unwise for us to pick a trial date today, since the new attorney is about to be appointed. Although if we could have an IDC date tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, as soon as possible, I think that would be a good idea. As to any referrals for medical issues regarding Mr. Christopher, of course, people submitted. I wasn't part of any discussions on that, and people just submitted. And as to the prior case, following along this case, so that it's available in whatever courtroom this case is heard, it seems like that's a good idea, so that court and counsel can have ready reference to anything from the prior file.
Okay. I will turn to Mr. Christopher, but Mr. Emmerich, did you wish to be heard at all?
Yeah, and the only comment I was going to make was I think that once an attorney is appointed, I think it's going to be necessary for you to set an interim date, such as a pretrial date from that point, simply to see where that attorney is with regards to being able to prepare for this case, because it is not a simple case to get up to speed on. It takes there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of things in it that are quite confusing. As I've learned, and it's taken me, I mean, it's part of the difficulty in preparing to even talk to Mr. Christopher at times was the fact that it took a lot of going through and looking at things repeatedly, because there were so many confusing issues. And I will say, when I got the file, there were things from the old file, things from the new file. I mean, in the old Smith case, there were interspersed with things from the later case that actually led to some confusions on that part as well. And I would do my best to kind of outline things for the new attorney so that maybe they won't stumble on some of the same things I did, but it is a pretty complex case, and I do agree with Mr. Shapiro that setting a trial date at this point, without having an idea about how long it's going to take the new attorney, would seem otherwise.
Okay, Mr. Christopher, do you have any objection to me having the old file trail this one so that it would always be in the courtroom and available along with the preliminary transcript hearing from July 1999? Do you have any objection to that trail in this case?
I would ask at this point, not only would that be done, but I'd ask that copies of the file be made available to myself. I've had a very difficult time myself, as Mr. Emmerich has had, as Mr. Brower has had before him, and obtaining the charging documents, specifically from the original case, prosecution in 1999. And those original charging documents, genuine copies that have been file stamped, those being missing as reported by Mr. Brower, if that is true, then it speaks to the issue of the falsification of the transcript. And so I, at this late date, I mean, this is 2005, the prosecution was in 1999, I would really love to have copies of everything that's in file, in addition to all the transcripts that have occurred throughout the prosecution from 1999 on. And having my legal runner, Mr. Hyder, not have a problem in obtaining copies, and having the same problem that Mr. Emmerich has had. Mr. Emmerich testified
that proceeding was confidential, and so I'm going to cut you off because that proceeding was confidential to protect the attorney-client communication privilege. So I don't want you to say that I heard it. You don't need to say it at this point.
But that has something that protects Mr. Emmerich. It goes to his defense in the sense that
Mr. Christopher, I'm going to cut you off because that's out of order, and I'm going to have case CC9933180 trail this one. Now, there's been an issue with respect to jail medical. I'm happy to make a referral on the order that you refer to jail medical for further evaluation regarding the issues that you raised in the closed hearing. Is that something that you would request, or is that something that you would refuse?
No, I would prefer that happen, actually. Yes.
Okay, so then I'll make, let me state that for the record so that it can be noted on the minute order, that it will, and Mr. Emmerich can approach and return the court's file, that I'll order that you be referred to jail medical for evaluation. Did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, you ignored the request, or you forgot the request, Judge Yu, for copies of that file to be sent to me, and also for copies of all the transcripts of all the hearings that have taken place since 1999.
I didn't ignore or forget that request. I'm not ruling on it because it's not proper. You will have an attorney who will have access to the file to obtain it. I know there have been representations that other people have had difficulties, other people being Mr. Emmerich, obtaining the file, and the court was able to get the file in about half an hour today, so I'm not making any comment on other people's representation, but I don't believe that the court needs to address whether or not copies are made by court personnel for you when, as you know, there's a procedure, there's issues with respect to cost, and you are going to have an attorney. So the issue then is, when we bring this back?
How about justice, Sean?
And I would suggest that we bring it back on Monday, October 24th, or Wednesday afternoon, but I'm concerned that if we bring it back on Wednesday afternoon, it will not give ADO enough time to identify an attorney to represent Mr. Christopher. So my suggestion is Monday, October 24th at 8:30. Does that work? Will you be available, Mr. Shapiro?
I'll be available.
Okay, so we'll put it on for October 24th, and that's going to be at 8:30 here for identification of counsel and for trial setting. Did you want to say anything else, Mr. Christopher?
I wanted to say that in the interest of justice, having this case go on since 1999, and without any dispute, there have been allegations made, declarations made of fraud in this case. And for you to say to me that you're not going to give me documents of my own hearings, it looks like you've got something to hide. It looks like you've got something to hide.